Okay, this is an issue that affects a lot, so we're going to take a closer look at what's going on with Live Nation and Ticketmaster in the lawsuit against them. Joining us, Pooja Nair, a partner at Ervin Cohen Jessup. Pooja, welcome to the program. I just kind of want to get right to it because we heard the DOJ spell it out. We're not here because they're difficult or whatever. We're here because they're criminal. This is the second big DOJ announcement that we've seen in as many months against this company. Is it going to go anywhere?
It might. Because there was a merger in which Live Nation acquired Ticketmaster back in 2010, Live Nation has already been under DOJ scrutiny. And in fact, they've been part of a 10-year consent decree that was expanded to 2025. So that means that DOJ, since the merger in 2010, the DOJ has been scrutinizing Live Nation, and it's already highlighted some of these anti-competitive practices that are flagged in this lawsuit. And I think that the congressional hearings right after the Taylor Swift concert fiasco has really shined a spotlight on something that the DOJ has already been aware of and really prompted the action.
You know, there's some real eye-popping numbers in Benji Heyer's story leading into the fact that they control, Live Nation, Ticketmaster controls 80% of the tickets for a lot of the big stars, the big venues, whatever you want to say. So let's talk about what Live Nation is being accused of. Racking up fees, taking money from the performer as well as sticking it to the fan. So I want to know how this is different or similar perhaps to the Apple suit that was filed back in March.
So in terms of the lawsuit themselves, the thrust of the Apple lawsuit is solely about the monopoly. So the Sherman Act is what regulates monopolies and anti-competitive behavior in the U.S. legal system. And the lawsuit against Live Nation alleges claims under both Section 1 and Section 2 of the Sherman Act. And Section 1 focuses on anti-competitive practices. And I think that's really the thrust of most of the claims. The Apple lawsuits focus on monopolistic behavior, which is also alleged in this in the Live Nation lawsuit. But that's the focus. And here, because the DOJ has already been watching the merger, it's really looking at how Live Nation has utilized Ticketmaster along with its other businesses and kind of created this flywheel effect. Whereas the Apple lawsuit is more focused on Apple being so dominant in the smartphone industry and what the effect of Apple's entryway and entry blocking into its own platform is causing.
Now, earlier you referred to the Taylor Swift fiasco, and that, of course, when the tickets went on for the Eras Tour, the system just crashed and people couldn't get tickets. By the time they could, a lot of the great tickets were gone, or people just had to pay face value exorbitant prices because of all the attachments that Ticketmaster stuck to it. Same thing happened to Bruce Springsteen, his show. I mean, people paid, I think the cheapest ticket I saw at one point was like $900. So let's talk about the examples that the government is pointing to. I mean, you're not only pricing the average person out of it, it's just stealing in many ways.
Well, and it's also the lack of transparency. What the government said and what the government called it in the lawsuit was a Ticketmaster tax. And I think in a lot of Ticketmaster and Live Nation's responses, they've stated that, you know, they're due to the venue raising fees. But what the government and the lawsuit's saying is that if Live Nation controls most of the venues and the concert promotion and the ticketing, it really creates this effect where all together it's raising the prices for all these different ways in a way that's not transparent to the consumer.
Yeah, what about smaller artists? We heard the one guy, I guess, from the indie band talking, the wildest gig that he's had in some time, but talk about how it's affecting these folks because, you know, these bands make a lot of their money by touring.
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the things that the lawsuit's really focused on and describes the effects on artists. And especially because Live Nation has essentially bought up a lot of concert promoters that were more regional. And so essentially it controls a lot of businesses that used to go under smaller venues. So they can also steer, if they're the concert promoter, they can steer where their artists are going and then squeeze venues that are not using Ticketmaster essentially out of business. That's part of what the accusations are. And it's essentially saying that because if artists want to be in the mainstream, they're going to end up being touched by one of the Live Nation businesses, and that allows Live Nation to steer to steer other business their way.
I think touched is a kind word. I think lassoed may be a little bit better. But we've heard from the critics. We heard from the DOJ. We've heard from some of the bands. How is Ticketmaster responding to these accusations? I presume they have completely lawyered up.
They have, but you know what's interesting to me is that Ticketmaster and Live Nation released a statement essentially directly to the fans. That was what they released right after this lawsuit came out. And what they say is really that there's changes to the industry, and it's not Ticketmaster itself, but that there's changes to the industry that have raised up prices for everyone. They blame venues for raising prices, which we talked about a little bit. And then they also say that Ticketmaster has invested the most, Live Nation and Ticketmaster have invested the most in innovation, and essentially the artists don't want to use other that don't want to go with something that's not Ticketmaster because Ticketmaster is the only thing that has the capacity to do these large-scale events.
Okay, let's talk about likely outcomes, because the jaded fans who've been paying out exorbitant prices are going to say, we're not going to get a break. But what about consumers? Will help come in time for the big festival and the summer concert season?
No, not this, maybe next summer, not this summer. I think that the Ticketmaster and Live Nation will be more likely, because they've been doing some promotions for all-in pricing, which I've noticed before. I think that will be likely that they will do their own promotions because of kind of this outrage, but there won't be any resolution to the lawsuit that will help consumers. I would be surprised if anything happened within a year. It's more likely to be a couple of years.